Hey, everybody. Welcome to Thursday Night Book Club. I am Leah Pearson, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys tonight about chapters 3 and 4 of Get Over Your Darn Self. This has been just an awesome refresher for me. I think Candace said last week that she had read this right as she was getting started, and the same with me. It was about a year ago that I read through this, and I love at different stages just kind of taking a look at things. Not only is it good because you have more context for this kind of stuff now, like a year into my business, year and a half in, I have more context for it. But I think it's really good to go and revisit like even the basic things like in chapter 3 where she's talking about creating the list, because the reality is we're training people up in that every single day. And so if you have new people come in, it's really, really important that you are staying current in what that looks like, so that you can raise up leaders as well. So I really got a lot out of these chapters. I'm looking forward to hearing from you as well. But even just today, I went through and after reading the chapters, I updated my lists and I kind of been reevaluating what does this look like for me now that, because it always looks different in all different stages. I know Emily did in a team call a couple of weeks ago where she talked about how like your business is only going to rise to the level of like what your systems are and like how you're working in your day in and day out. And so I was thinking about that in context to even just like, what does your system look like for creating your lists and keeping track of your follow-ups and all of that. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys with that. But I wanted to start out with chapter 3. She was talking about how I thought it was really good where she opened and said that your list is like a bank account. And so you're going to like take withdrawals from that. You need to make sure that you keep adding into the list. So I thought that was a really good analogy because as you're journeying, you are going to be taking people off that list because either they're like signing up or you can categorize them, and anyone else can chime in with how they do this too, but you can kind of categorize like these are warm conversations I have going, these are colder conversations I have going and things like that. And so kind of organizing your list in that way, but then also making sure that you're continually adding people into your funnel. But then I really wanted to talk to you about what she said about, I think it's really important to remember that when you are doing your IPA, I think for some reason, like the IPA just seems like this mountain that people are faced with every single day. But in reality, your IPA is really simple if you do a really good job of keeping your list updated. And she talked about that right on the first page, that you are going to be able to efficiently do your IPA. It's not going to take a lot of time if you are investing in keeping your list updated. So I thought that was really good. But I'd love to hear kind of your guys' thoughts, what stood out to you as far as creating that master list in that first section that she had listed there.
I think one big thing is just at the end of the day, you can find excuses why you can't do something, or you can find reasons and figure out how to do it. Right. So I've heard so many times, if people feel like they don't have anyone to reach out to and they've gone through everybody, or, they have their chicken list or whatever it is, you can find the reasons or excuses to not do something, or you can figure it out and make it happen. Right. And this is just a great example here in a tool of how it really is just an action step. And here's how it breaks down. And here's how you can be empowered to take action. And it's as simple as that. Right. So I do love that she spells it out for very clearly. And it kind of puts any excuses by the wayside. If anyone tends to still want to go there, and then that just has to be a choice. Like, I'm not going to dwell on this, or I'm not going to sit here and keep thinking this, and I'm going to move forward.
Yeah, she even said like if there's somebody, she went through a whole list of, different action steps you can take. And then she's like, all right, if somebody can still not come up with more than like 25 people for their list, then tell them to give that list to you and they can be a happy product user. I'm like, that's really good. Like, do they want it enough to even be able to formulate a list?
I really love how, I'm sorry, was someone else starting to talk?
No, go ahead, Jen.
Okay. I really loved how she made it a point to talk about like starring your top 30 dream teamers. That's something that I've always done. And even as people join me or already on my team, I still have some of those people highlighted that I'm still following up with as far as talking to them about the business. And I literally have them highlighted in my Excel spreadsheet as green, just for those specific dream teamers. So I think that's super important. And then I also really loved where she talked about the dirt list. I think that's a hilarious way of talking to people about their very first people to get started. You know what I mean? So we just talk about, who trusts you the most, who would you, if you got a gym membership, who would you go to the gym with? But I loved how she put it as the dirt list. I thought that was a great way of thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. And in that section, I kind of thought too, how important is it when someone's just getting started, we need to get them wins, right? So it's like, we have to help them identify that to get the ball rolling. I like that too.
Leah, I was just gonna say, when I just sat down with a blank sheet of paper to write down names, it felt really overwhelming, but I opened up my Facebook and opened up my friends list in there and literally just started writing like anybody that I thought was even remotely like I would be comfortable asking them at this point. Like there's some people I feel like it's been so long since I've ever talked to them that it would take me a little more being comfortable to like bring that up, or just need to work at a relationship longer. But he easily came up with like 150 names. And then similar to Jen, I went back through and put stars by the ones that I was like, I'm absolutely would feel like I could ask them right now and not have to like really spend a lot of time rebuilding that relationship back instead of coming out of nowhere. But it was much easier than just a blank sheet of paper in front of me to like have a friends list to start off from.
Yeah. And I think, she goes, I'm trying to think what page it was, page 46. That's kind of skipping ahead, but she gives, some ideas to help, spark some ideas as far as who to think of. And the same with, we have like the Frank's list as a tool on the team page that we use. But I think this is probably more thorough, and I thought it was really helpful. But yeah, that's good.
Really quick on that, you talk about having those dream teamers. The phrase should like stop you in your tracks from holding yourself back from doing something when she says it could cost you millions and keep you from living the life you want if you are holding yourself back from reaching out to one of those people. So that is very powerful, and it is so true. I mean, there's someone that could join you that is going to be your first diamond yet, who you haven't reached out to. And this could be the person that, like could make a huge difference. And it's not, everything doesn't hang up on one person, but if you live your life missing out on that, or the fact that it could cost you millions with one person not stepping in, that's a gut check. And that should propel you into action and empower you.
Yeah, that's really good. I liked on page, I think it was 47, where she was talking about like, you can't make up stories in your head about what they're going to say. Like, I think oftentimes with our chicken list or our dream teamers, that's what we do, is we have this story that is just running in our brains, but really that is just a waste of energy speculating when we have no idea. We can make an observation on someone's life, but the reality is social media does not always portray the true reality. And I think it's really important, like Amanda, I kind of was thinking about this when you were talking, like, it's really important to just, we're connecting with people and asking more questions to hear their heart. And if something comes up where we can offer a solution to them, then that's what we're doing when we're reaching out to people about the business. It's not like we're going to just spring in there and say, hey, there's this business opportunity. Like, boldness is good. I'm all for that. But I always try to approach it as like, when I'm business prospecting, I'm just trying to see kind of where they're at and offering a solution to something that they need. So that's helped my mindset. But does anybody else have anything on that? Did anybody make a chicken list after reading this?
I had a highlight on 50 where she said, take all those little random sticky notes on your phone, blah, blah, blah. Like, that is me. And I've spent some time the last couple of days just really trying to get organized because, you're out and about everywhere. And so I do have little like notes and stuff, but getting organized just helps you feel like you can get in a headspace to like be more productive when you do have the chunks of time.
Mm-hmm. I like what she said about how it's duplicatable if you just have a new person throw it on a pad of paper. Like that's very duplicatable. But then I'd love to hear for other people who have been in the business for a while, how do you organize your stuff? Does anybody have some wisdom to share on how you track, like maybe notes you take while you're having conversations, things like that? Because I do think that it's powerful to have it all in one place. Not that I'm the same, Amanda. I've got lots of notes everywhere. Jen, you mentioned a spreadsheet, so maybe you should share.
Or the one night I come on here without no makeup.
That's fine.
So spreadsheet, yeah, I use the Excel spreadsheet, like the the one that's been around forever and ever. And I actually save it to my Google Sheets because then I can like download the Google Sheet app on my phone, so I can open up from my phone if I need to, if I'm on the go. But I really like to like work from my phone and have my laptop up with my Google Sheets open so that I can like track it as I'm sending messages. And then I just like make a key with different colors for highlighting different specific things. But then also there's a place to put comments in. So if you talk to someone who, struggles with X, Y, and Z, and you want to remember it because it's someone that you're really, it's a warm person you're talking to, you can make comments and then refer back to it, which is really nice. And again, like sorting people into like hot, warm, and cold, I think is important too. So that's just something that works for my brain. I have to see like the big picture. I know some people don't like that at all. So just kind of depends.
That's a good idea on Google Sheets.
Can I ask Jen a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? Jen, I just started using Google Sheets exactly the way you just described it. And I have a quick question about comments. Is that how you track like long conversations that go over months and months and months? Because like the note section is so small and it makes your sheet so wonky if you put tons of notes in one place.
Yeah.
But can you use the comments to do that?
Yeah.
Is that what
So
you
don't
do?
use the notes. The notes are weird. I don't know why, but I don't use notes at all. I think if you double click or I think it's like at a drop down and click on comment, and actually that's a way better format. It lays it out really nice, and you can like type comments till the cows come home. That's actually like how I track my team also. Like on the second page, it's like one page for potentials, one page for team. And then I'll track like my coaching call information there. So I jot notes on paper when I'm doing a coaching call, but then I write notes out so it's legible and I can read it the next week or whatever. So yeah, comments, not notes. Notes are weird. They don't show up right.
All right, that's a great tip. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If you need systems wisdom, ask Jen. She's got it down. Anybody else on chapter 3? Anything that stood out to you?
I think it was chapter 3. She made a comment about how you need to have your act together because, you can't exactly look like hell and expect somebody to want what you have. And I think Natalie said something about this on a call about, having to get dressed and make yourself look good, to feel good, to present yourself, to have that confidence because you feel good, so that was something that kind of stuck out to me, on top of nobody's going to want what you have if you look like crap. I mean, it's kind of a funny way to look at it, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Well, and for your social media too, whether she was kind of referencing there when you're out and about, like get your face out in public. But as far as social media goes too, what are you portraying on your page? Like what kind of values are you portraying? Do you look professional? That's
Well, yeah,
not.
I mean, you don't want to not be, I mean, you don't want to be fake about it. You know what I mean? But to be presentable is one thing, I mean, if you're a mom and you're running around with, 3, 4 kids, you got a mom bun, that's, doesn't mean you're not presentable. It just, but, you don't want to be hungover and, those kinds of things, so I just thought that was really a good point.
Mm-hmm. And that looks
Confidence
different
booster.
that looks different for everybody too. Like I think of Brooke Hemingway, how she's like showing up for her Zoom calls. She's like one of the top earners in all of Plexus. And 90% of the time, I swear she's in workout clothes because that's her. It's like she's committed to working out 6 days a week and she's stinking busy with 6 kids. So it's like she, is in the workout clothes. But to me, that portrays like she's setting goals and she's, like doing what, like she has self-integrity. She's getting that stuff done. Whereas,
Motivated.
yeah, other people, it might look a little different. Like having your hair curled might make you feel like a boss, and that's good too. But yeah, that's good. Anybody else on chapter 3?
Shortly after that little section, just a couple paragraphs down, she said, I genuinely enjoy being a resource for people. And that's something that I've been trying to just consider a lot, like how to add value to people's lives and just thinking through different areas of how to like come alongside them or how to be a reference to something or how to give in little ways or how like paying attention to what's going on in their personal life and dropping a card in the mail or drop a dinner off or and then even in just social media, like what can we put on our social media that adds value to their life in some way. So I think it looks different for everybody. And the more I kind of watch, I see the different little like areas that each of us feel like we have gifts in that we can offer to other people. And I love that about it, is that you see the different personalities come out and also just it helps me think more creatively about how to give when I'm watching kind of what other people are doing to add value to people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Serving. I love that. Well, so chapter 4, I loved, what's your story? And I really would like to sit down this week and just have some things written out in front of me. One thing that I've even done, like when I'm doing reach outs or things like that, I do voice clip a lot, but one thing that has helped me because, it's a lot easier to be plentiful with your words than to be concise. I don't know if anybody remembers this, like from college, or from school, but professors would put like a limit on the amount of words that you could have in a paper because they know that way they're forcing us to really think and be more intentional about what we're saying. And I know that attention spans of people, like people are busy. They're not going to sit there and listen to you talk for, I think she even said, a lot of times in this industry, people say like, have your 2 to 3 minute elevator speech. And she's like, no, 45 seconds. And it takes being intentional. And I think sitting down beforehand, and I don't think it's wrong to have like some scripts written out that you can reference, and you obviously don't have to like read them, word for word while you're talking on the phone with someone. But for me, someone with memory loss, it's really nice to have that in front of me to kind of jog my memory and keep me on target so I'm not blabbing forever. So has anybody like intentionally sat down and scripted that out? Was that eye-opening to you? Love to hear your thoughts on that. Was anyone surprised by the 45 seconds?
It definitely makes you be intentional because I feel like it's so easy. Like she says, you could add so much extra fluff or what you think might be just part of your whole story. And I mean, I tell my story a lot on three-way calls, when we do it with like the new welcome calls or vision calls or whatever we do. And I tell my story a lot, but that's a little bit different. That one should be a little bit longer, but I can't imagine tying it down to 45 seconds. I've tied it down to, I think, a a little bit more than that, like an elevator speech and things like that. But yeah, it definitely takes you being just very concise and to the point. And I think what helps with that, I guess, is if you're thinking not it being about you as much as what can you say that's going to be the most impactful for them in 45 seconds, then that makes it, I think, a better perspective versus needing to tell your whole life story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she flat
And I
out
think for
says
me,
that.
when I first, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, and to say, when I first wrote out my story and posted it, it was like super long and I just felt like it had so much in it. I bet you I could probably go back and write it a little smaller because of those details the fluff that you can take out. So I think the more you're doing this, the more confidence you're building, the more you see others, the more, you can kind of change your story to be able to be more relatable in the sense that it's, more specific, and I like how she talked about at one point, she says, you make your story kind of fit who you're talking about. So, if you were an attorney at one point and then you became a stay-at-home mom, if you're talking to a stay-at-home mom, you're going to talk about your stay-at-home mom stuff, not the attorney stuff. So really challenging yourself to make it more suitable, more relatable, I think comes easier the longer you kind of do this. I was scared to death the very first time I did it, and I could probably go back and do it a little easier now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's why it's really important to make sure you're asking them questions, because if you don't have any context about that person, then you can't make it more relatable to them. Whenever I do a 3-way call with Jamie, she always, like with a, new business builder or whatever, she always asks some questions first, like, what brought you to Plexus? And that person will open up, and just that one question, it's like, I've heard her story a million times too, but it's like she tweaks it just a little bit every time, depending on what would relate to that person. But then as far as prospecting goes too, it's like, if you don't ask questions, you have no idea how to tweak your story. So.
I love when they're talking about suggesting behavior that you don't want them to do. That's something I've noticed in my story that I've changed a lot over the past couple of years of doing this. Because I remember when I first started, I was all into sharing how skeptical I was and, how I wanted results before I even decided to share. And it's funny because people would talk to me and they're like, well, I'm just like you, I'm skeptical, or, remember, I know you wanted the results. I'm like that too. And I found that I was really just putting stuff into their heads that maybe they wouldn't have felt before, maybe they weren't that skeptical because I said it, they felt like they had to be, or, I said I wanted my own results or whatever. So now they're thinking about that too. And so I found that the more I've eliminated a lot of that from my own personal story, and I've really just talked about just my experience, not as far as like how I was feeling, or because I think that's a lot of the fluff is like what you're thinking or how you're feeling in the moment or whatever, that's a lot of the fluff I think she's talking about, but just being very matter of fact about your experience and where you were and why you decided to do this or whatever is different. But once I've eliminated that, I don't hear a lot of that stuff as much anymore because I think it's just, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments right now for some reason. I don't know why I'm like trying to read these. I'm like, I don't need to read these. I'm talking. Gosh. Anyways, so I just think that that's really important to keep in mind that when you're talking and you're telling your story, like you don't want to put things in people's heads, that they may not be feeling.
Mm-hmm. I kind of talked about that on the Ruby call a little bit right before this too. Like when you're posting about the business, you don't necessarily have to like handle everybody's objections or like try to convince all the haters, because really there might just be a select few people that think that, but like, let's talk about the positive. Let's talk about the good things. Yeah, that's really good. Who else?
I really loved where she talked about adapting your story for your audience that you're talking to. I think that's super important. And there's always something that you can connect with people on. I think it's not that difficult. But that's where you really draw people in. And so I really liked that.
Mhm.
Who else? Can anyone speak on page 64 where she was talking about how to talk about having a slow start? Like if you've been doing this for a while, you don't necessarily have, I guess, the results of like your business yet. How do you talk about that with confidence still? Is it okay for a brand new share to have confidence? Go ahead.
So I don't exactly have a slow start, but I did like how she just explained how you can talk about maybe you didn't make it a priority, or maybe you only dedicated like X much to it, or etc. Or even talking to people about like how your perspective shifting over time, which I have it on Audible book, so I don't have the actual book to look at, but I just like how she gave an example of how that could also be a positive thing, and how it can be encouraging to other people who might be really worried. If you're like, it's okay, I started really slow too, and now look, now look I am. So
Mhm. Thanks for sharing.
A big part of no matter where you've been and what you've done, it's focusing on where you're going too. So when Fallon and Tiffany, when I was on the phone with them when I started, Fallon, I didn't know Fallon had been stuck at gold for 2 years and actually went back to like silver points. She didn't tell me that. She wasn't like, well, I've been doing this for 2 years, but I'm still gonna be diamond, like that wasn't the focus. You would never have known, because she was so bold and confident and excited and passionate, and in terms of where they are going. And hey, you can come with us if you want. This is why we're going there. This is how we're going to do it. And there was no doubt in my mind that they were going to make that happen. So you can be very passionate and bold and excited and inspiring when you are a silver, when you are a gold, when you've been stuck for 2 years or for 3 years or gone back in points or whatever your story is. You can still be extremely inspiring and passionate and bold about what is happening and where you're going, and bringing people along with you. She didn't get everything figured out and get to a higher rank before she got passionate and bold about it. She was passionate and bold, and that's why she got people to come alongside of her and then all run together. So I think that's extremely important. And I'm glad she addresses it in here too, in terms of, it doesn't matter if you're there or if you're going there, your story is still the same. You're still looking forward and telling people about it.
I feel like I was just recently having kind of almost the flip side of this conversation, but the concept is still the same. You're still focused on where you're going. And some of it revolved around fast start. And I think we had some people that were really getting down on themselves because they had taken action, they'd hit the ground running, they'd had some wins, but didn't get that third by the fast start deadline. And I think we're feeling super defeated and super deflated about that. And I think that it's really important, especially as you're bringing people on, to remind them to celebrate the wins still, and also remind them that just because they were or weren't that fast start goal maker does not determine your ultimate success for the long haul of this business. That's just something to get excited about. It's something to help them have a goal to go after, but that it is not a determining factor as to whether or not they will be big picture successful in this business. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen people be hit fast start right out of the gate, and not too much longer after, they're gone. And then I've had others who were slower starters that maybe didn't hit the fast start, that are making really substantial income for their families now. So I just think, again, it's a little bit of the flip side of it, but the concept is still the same. Where are you going? Don't worry about the timeline. Just focus on taking action on where you're going and inspiring people to come with.
That's good. So good.
And I shared this with them too to help. I was not fast start silver, but I'm senior ruby, and I'm making a really, really, really good income for my family. So just thought I would share that little tidbit in case y'all wondered. I was not a fast starter.
You're awesome. Current circumstances don't dictate the end result. The big picture is diamond. And it'll still be worth it, even if it takes you 10 years to get there. Anybody else?
There was a part at the end, because I didn't know how to really talk about my story, but and I'm thinking to myself, none of this fits me. But when it says, here's how to talk about a slow start, I'm very slow starting. I'm still at silver, and I've been at silver for quite a while. But I love what you said. For the last year, I've loved the products, the discounts and the tax deduction. I mean, I got my 1099, and it was more than I thought, actually, so that part I really liked. That gave me an answer. It's funny how when you're reading, you start thinking about, well, that don't work, for me anyway, and stuff. And then voila, there it is, So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else? One thing that's come up with a couple of people on my team recently, like the Build Your Story library, like where to find different stories that you can share. That's come up with a couple of my shares the last couple of weeks. We obviously, I think most of us know about Diamond Docs. There is a Pink Power post that has like a description of who was a stay-at-home mom, who was a homeschooling mom, who was making professional level income. That's a helpful resource in Pink Power that you can find. Anybody else have other resources? I think it's important to continue to watch those and build your own belief, but then also have them ready to be able to send to people. And then Brittany and Christina have a call too with their husbands. Like if somebody's husband opposes like MLMs or the business, Jamie, is that kind of what you're thinking? That's a good one too. ask your sponsor, they can get you plugged into that as well. We're at 10:08, so if anyone else has anything to add, speak now.
Real quick at the end, the very last page. It says if you're constantly feeding yourself with stories about how your company and your products are positively impacting people, you'll increase your belief and be able to inspire others. One of my biggest things was belief in the beginning because I didn't have a story. I didn't have any of that. And so the more I started reading people's stories and testimonies and all that stuff, it became easier for me to have belief in it and to be able to talk to people about it. So I think that's a really good thing to work on your own belief. Read the testimonies, Diamond documentaries, those kinds of things. Something I've kind of always been opposed to, but doing them actually kind of changes your mind about it,
Usually the thing you don't want to do is what you should be doing.
It's the one thing that's holding you back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for
Or
sharing.
2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you everybody for hopping on, and we will see you next week with chapters 5 and 6.